So now Joseph, he's sold into Egypt, and it says he's brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, remember, the officer of Pharaoh. Pharaoh at that time literally meant the ruler of the entire land. Okay? Think of it as literally the king. Like they just called them pharaohs. That was the Egyptian way to call them. Captain of the guard, an Egyptian, brought him out of the hand of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down there. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. So again, on the outside, you might think, this guy Joseph has a horrible life. You know, his brothers tried to kill him. They sold him to the Egyptians. He's now a slave, and yet he is a prosperous man, and he's in the house of his master, the Egyptian. But hold on, he is in the house of the most powerful man that exists in the entire land. Okay? So his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. This is evidence. This is evidence that someone has favor with God. And you can see this evidently with people where you're like, why is it that whatever that person does, like whatever that person is involved in, they seem to somehow be protected, they seem to somehow be prospering in a way that's supernatural, in a way that like you can't have anything to say against them, to say, oh, they're doing it through wicked means, they're doing it through trickery. No. You can literally see that the Lord is with the person. And he could. And Joseph found grace in his sight. Again, why would he find grace in the sight of his, quote, master, literal slave master? Because God is with him, and God is making all of that possible. And he served him, and he made him what? What did he make Joseph? Overseer over his entire house. That is a level of like authority that is basically unmatched. All that he had, he put into his hand. He gave complete and utter trust. And once again, you don't just do that with anybody. So again, Joseph was clearly a righteous man, a godly man, who actually feared the Lord. And how do we know that? Because again, we will see throughout the scriptures how he reacts. He doesn't try to take vengeance on his brothers. He doesn't try to take advantage of his manager, his master, who bestowed all this trust upon him. He is a godly and good person. It came to pass from the time that he had made him overseer of his house and over all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake, and the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. Now, this is another thing. If there is a believer in the home, but everybody else is a not believer, if there is a believer in a office, in a workplace, in a whatever, then that entire place can be blessed by the Lord for the sake of the believer. In this case, for Joseph's sake. That's the power. That's the power of being a child of God. And everybody recognized that. So, of course, it was also then in their favor. They're like, well, you know what? This guy, okay, he believes in this God that we don't necessarily know. We have our own, gods and all that. But clearly, this is a powerful God that he serves because he's blessing our entire house just for him physically being even in our presence. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, literally handed him the keys to his entire kingdom, the Pharaoh. And he knew not. He didn't know aught that he had save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a goodly person and well favoured. Basically, he's saying, he didn't even, double check. He didn't micromanage. He didn't be check all the time. What is he doing? He trusted him with everything. But it says, look, Joseph was a goodly person and well favoured. And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph. And she said, lie with me. Now this is a temptation from Satan. You will be tempted all the time. This is just a fact of life all the time. We live in the kingdom of darkness. Until the Lord's return, where he will rule the world with a rod of iron, that will continue to be your daily battle. Just because you're a goodly person, you love God, you're well favoured, doesn't mean that Satan's not going to show up every day to try and tempt you. But he refused and said unto his master's wife, behold, my master doesn't even know what's with me in this house, meaning that he has left everything in my hands. He trusts me with literally everything. He doesn't monitor me, nothing. He has committed all he has into my hand. There is none greater in this house than I, meaning that there's literally no one of higher authority that exists in the house than me, okay? Neither has he kept back anything from me but you, because you're his wife, obviously, understandably. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against who? Against God. So important that he says it like that. He's like, it's not even that I'm sinning against my master. It's not that I'm sinning against, my own conscience. No, I'm sinning against God because God has favored me and put all of this blessing into my hand. How could I do that? How could I sin against God to do what? To do what? For a momentary pleasure? He knew full well the man had such an amazing fruit of the spirit of self-control and discernment to be like, nah, I'm not even for a second even considering what you're trying to get me involved in. But look, does Satan therefore go away and leave you alone? No. It came to pass as she spoke to Joseph day by day, she wouldn't stop. She kept coming back like, come on, why not? Come on, we're all alone. Come on, who's here? No one's going to see it. Come on. You have the power of all the kingdom, so you can do whatever you want, including with me, right? This is how it is. You've got a similar situation going on with Samson, but unfortunately he caves, so you can see how it ends for him versus how it ends for Joseph. Again, the word of the Lord is your teacher and your guide. If you're not reading it daily, you're literally choosing death and destruction. It is the ultimate guidebook to life. So if you're not learning from the scriptures, then you're not maturing in any which way or form. You're just waiting to be caught in the snare of the devil. He listened not to her to lie with her or to be with her. And it came to pass about this time when Joseph would go into his house to do his business. So again, in his daily business, so he's not expecting it. He's just like minding his own business. There was none of the men in the house. So again, he was completely alone. So this is another opportunity Satan likes to use, which is basically like, come on, who's going to see it? No one's going to know. No one's going to find out. Okay. She caught him by his garment. So at this point, she's using physical force now. Okay, so she grabs him by his clothes and she's like, lie with me now. And he literally, this is what he did. Absolute legend, Joseph. The guy is so a proof of like how God is his number one and nothing can move past it. He's like, he literally ran so fast that his clothing, his mantle, his whatever, his like coat he was wearing was left in her hand. And he ran away from her. He ran. Where else are we told to do that? 1 Corinthians 6:18. Flee fornication. Like literally run away from it. Every sin that a man does is without means outside of the body. But he that commits fornication sins against his own body. Meaning you're literally, I want you to look at it like this. Fornication and all forms of it is self-harm. Know you not that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost, which is you, which you have of God and not of your own? As in basically your body belongs to God. For you are bought with a price. Therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. And so that's what he did. But now hold up, what happens? So now she's rejected and she still doesn't want him to get away with it. So she goes around and tells her husband, Pharaoh, his boss, he tried to lie with me and I cried with a loud voice and then he ran away and look, I'm holding his coat. So she's putting him in a trap through a lie. And of course, who's Pharaoh going to believe? His wife. So he puts him into prison. Okay, but listen. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. You think anything is impossible with God? Absolutely nothing is impossible with God. And Joseph never once panicked. His trust in God was so fully up there. He wasn't even trying to go back and say, no, but it's not true. But he's like, no, master told me that. Okay. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hands all the prisoners. So even he literally committed the prisoners into Joseph's hand, okay? And the keeper of the prison didn't even look, therefore, unto what he was doing in there, because the Lord was with him, and that which he did, the Lord made it to prosper. In every situation, free or bond, when you are putting your trust into God, he will enable you to prosper. Absolutely incredible.